Hey, what's up guys, JQ with Tech Creation. Now I want you guys to take a second to admire the craftsmanship of this phone. It's truly a gem compared to the competition. Now I love this silver titanium thing going on, and I've been dying to get my hands on this color ever since there was a shortage of it on the Note 5. Mind you, it can also look gold depending on how light catches it. Now it's also offered in black, actual gold, and white, and I have with me the 32GB model, and it's also offered in 64GB, and I'll touch more on storage in just a second. So the S7 Edge is unchanged for the most part from its predecessor, the S6 Edge. For starters, it's much bigger, almost just as tall as the Note 5, now sporting a 5.5 inch screen, which is up from 5.1 inches, and it still rocks that Super AMOLED display that we all know and love with 534 ppi. Now combined with those edges, it really makes those bezels seem non-existent. I mean, if you never mess with the S6 Edge, you're really missing out. I mean, images and video just really fall off that display, quite literally too, and I can't think of anywhere else to describe it, but it's just a rich, vibrant screen that you have to see for yourself in person. Personally, I think Samsung is close to perfecting the aesthetics of a smartphone, but again, that's just my opinion, and that's always up for debate. So moving on, in addition to that curved edge screen, this time around it borrows that slightly curved back that's found on the Galaxy Note 5, but it's just not as pronounced. Both curves are joined with a thin slice of aluminum around the entire phone, resulting in a gorgeous piece of engineering that's actually quite comfortable to hold despite its size thanks to those curves. So Samsung finally listened to the complaints and brought back micro SD card slot expansion that supports up to 200GB of additional storage, and it lives in the same tray as your SIM card. Now I'll be honest, storage was never really a major issue for me. Nonetheless, I still think it was a fantastic move on their end. And the only downside here is if you're one to constantly switch out cards, that means you have to pop out your SIM card with your SD card every time, which is not particularly ideal as it cuts off service. Now I think Samsung knew this, and they kindly included a USB dongle so you can transfer data to and from your smartphone. They've also thrown a pair of headphones with a nice translucent carrying case that I think looks quite nice. I personally don't use them because I use my Jaybirds for daily usage anyway. Also, wireless charging and fast charging is still alive and well, which you can turn off fast charging in the settings, but I don't see why anyone would want to do that given how beneficial it is. Now, on the topic of charging, the S7 Edge packs a whopping 3600 mAh battery, which is larger than the Note 5, and let me just say, after a week of using it, it has yet to disappoint. I've easily gotten through a full day with moderate to heavy usage, averaging around 5 hours of screen on time, and standby time is fantastic as well. Literally, I can just let it sit there for a day or two without worrying if I need to recharge it again once I pick it up. Now the same fingerprint scanner returns, and a lot of folks beef with Samsung over their fingerprint reader, and it's always worked just fine. I mean, I'll admit it's not as fast as the iPhone 6s or the Nexus 6P, but it's fast enough, and for me, complaining about this is really nitpicking. I mean, at the end of the day, it works. So now it's no secret everyone hates TouchWiz for various reasons, but I like forming my own opinions. So visually, yeah, it's a bit cartoonish and not usually my taste, but with its performance, it's no longer the TouchWiz it used to be. Samsung stepped up their game with 4GB of RAM matching that of the Note 5, and combined with Android 6.0 Marshmallow underneath and that Snapdragon 820 processor, it handles the RAM-hungry TouchWiz UI with ease. Also, graphics and gameplay is top notch. It really handles it like nothing. No glitching or stuttering of any form, and I kind of expect that from a flagship phone. Now the back still gets warm with heavy usage, but even with that, it didn't affect my performance whatsoever. So TouchWiz itself is a lot brighter, with cool tones and blue accents which many people aren't a fan of. Now if that skin really bothers you, just go ahead and install a theme and bam, you can change the look of things dramatically. I personally think the theme store is one of the best things Samsung has ever done. So TouchWiz is pretty much the same at its core for the most part, with the exception of a few bells and whistles to the Edge UX. So instead of People Edge, you now have Apps Edge, where you can customize which apps you want quick access to in one-handed use, and you also have Tasks Edge, which is neat, where you can jump into specific tasks like composing an email, sending a text message, or even adding an alarm. And you can spend some time checking out the other options available. Above all, you can dive in and change some of the settings of the edge panel, like its transparency or the positioning on the edge, depending on how far your reach is. You can also download edge panels from a very limited category, as well as enable or disable which panels you don't want to use. But I gotta be honest, as easy and convenient it is to use, I still find myself not using it very often, mostly because I forget that it's actually there. Thankfully, you can always just turn it off altogether. Now, what's also new is that always on display, which we've seen before in other devices. Enabling this, you can opt to show an image, a calendar, or a clock while the phone is locked instead of the screen turning fully off, hence always on. This too, again, is another feature that I don't really see a need for it, so personally I just choose to leave it off. Now, the mono speaker below sounds okay and it gets pretty loud, but I would have preferred dual speakers or a front facing speaker setup. I think this is just as good as it's gonna get on Samsung phones, and hopefully I'm wrong. I still think HTC smartphones have some of the best speakers out there, but that's just my opinion. Now, in addition to that 5 megapixel camera up front with an f1.7 aperture, one of the biggest changes to come to the S7 Edge is its all new 12 megapixel camera, which is a lower megapixel count from its predecessors, but the actual pixels are larger at 1.4 microns. In layman's terms, each pixel captures better images, and combined with its now super wide f1.7 aperture, you're going to capture more light and greater detail from that lens, resulting in some stunning photos. And let's go ahead and take a look at a few indoor and outdoor examples. So this is a quick test of the front-facing camera's quality. Something else breakthrough here is its dual pixel sensor technology. So basically, all of the pixels captured are used for phase detection autofocus that allows for incredibly fast and precise focusing that's similar to the way the human eye works. At times, it's so fast in fact that it almost felt like it was focusing on the subject before I even got to it, as ridiculous as that sounds. Again, that's all thanks to those larger pixels that gather more light. Now, optical image stabilization still remains, so you can rest assured you're still going to get that smooth, crisp handheld 4K video. So you still have your typical modes like slow motion, panorama, and one new mode called hyperlapse where you can take video that appears to be sped up after you record it, basically simulating a time lapse. You also still have tracking autofocus and the ability to shoot raw photos. All the features that